all we intend to do. And then we'll just go with this. And of course, like I mentioned, we also then, after we've defined the prompts, right, we see that every message that goes into here will be classified into those few things. And right now, the next thing I'm going to do is to include a chat model. Right, so like I said, I'll be using two types of chat models today, Open Router and Gemini. So for Gemini, it's pretty simple to gain access to this model if you have like a Google account, right? And so to do that, if you have a Google account, the fastest way to get your Gemini credentials. So if I'm going to come here and create a new credential, for instance, of course, all I just need is the API key. And to do that, if you have a Google account, I think Google provides that that ability. So all you just need to do is come here and go to, you can just Google, right? AI Studio, Google, right? Google AI Studio, click on Google AI Studio. I'm not sure if this is the same thing everybody's going to see on their own platform, but of course, first place you want to come to is create API key, right? So I can, and then in creating API key, you want to also give it a name. So I can see ZP SME inquiry agents, right? And create key. All right, so already, it has given, I've given it a name, it has a project name, of course, and then I can just come here, copy key, right? And then when you come here, you just have to paste that key and you are good to go. Let's click on save. And what happens at that point, you now have access to all of Google's models. Of course, of course, Google would have a place like a usage, there's usually limits all of them, but of course now you have all those models and see all the models they have access to, right? So all the models that Google has created that the API key is giving you access to, right? So pretty cool models here. And then so for our case, we'll just use the flash preview because this flash preview is fast and can also be used for several other things. And yeah, so I can come here, and so another brief thing I would like to just do is to remember when I mentioned something like the outputs, right? Just to make sure that I am just to make sure that I am always bringing out the structured outputs, right? Don't think so much about it, but this is just to make sure that the output is always the same every time that this thing runs. To do that, I am just going to I clicked on structured outputs. Then I want to include something called a structured output parser, right? And in doing that, I would just remember when I was writing a prompt and I created. So let me just go back to the prompt. And I specified what I wanted the structure to look like, right? So this is an example of the structure. So I can just come here, copy just this particular example, and go back to this structured output and just paste that example, right? So it knows, so with this alone, it's able to understand because I said generate from just an example, right? So by just giving this example of how I want output to look like, it's able to then understand what needs to be done. All right, and then so when I run this, so I'm going to, so in anything, if you want to always make sure that your messages are consistent, I might have to just pin this just to make sure that the data doesn't fly away. And I'll just come here, I'm going to execute this step. So the AI agent has seen hello and is confident that the intent is just general and the urgency is low and confidence is very high confidence. I knows that hello Amukachi is just, it's just low urgency and it's a general system. So if I keep, typing new messages, I think let me just unpin this, then go back to type a message on Telegram and say, hi, I urgently need some bags for my travel. Right. So in this scenario, we're going to assume that this SME owner is, just sell bags, right? And for these bags, so they are always, selling bags, right? So now we've received an order. I originally need some bags for my travel, and then we normalized the output to just Ukachi, and this is the bags in it, message is being sent. As you can see here, intent is they want to make an order and urgency is high, right? So with that information alone, we can then be able to do several things. Okay, and yeah, so now that we now have an understanding of, we have an agent that is able to classify how urgent or general that um, an order is. So you can come here and put in an if node, right? If nodes are helps us to route, different items. So I'll just type if urgent, right? So two things that we want to do. If urgency is high, right? Like I mentioned, if the urgency is like I mentioned, if the urgency is high, right, then we want something to be done. If it's not high, then or something else, something else to be done. So, and this particular node, and this particular node will give us those two. So, you say, or any particular node can be able to give us those two outputs, whether true or false, right? So, here, as you can see here, in our case, because urgent is high, it's true. And because urgent, because this is an urgent request, we also then route it to another AI agent whose job will be just to notify the owner immediately and then also send a message on Telegram just to make sure the user is not restless, right? So and to do that, we'll also have to create another prompt that will help us to catch that information. Right. So normally we just don't need, in this case, we don't just need the classification is one thing, right? But then we also now need the information from the user to be able to know how to reply, the user, right? And that's where you still have to, anything you're able to go back to previous nodes to get that information and then also leverage that to, know how to reply. So I'm going to say user message here because we want this agent to reply. We want this agent to be able to reply the user, right? And so just to make it look good, we will also let me just make it look good. We also want to put user's name so that when the agent is replying the user, agent is looks more like a human readable message, right? And another thing that we're going to do now is to add what we call tools, right? So these tools, for instance, we'll add a Slack tool, right? So this Slack tool, its job is just to, the agent will know how to leverage Slack, right? To be able to send a message. And send message to user, I will just put my own name here. And yeah, simple text message. And I want the agents to determine the type of message I sent, right? Because there's something else I'm going to do to ensure that the agent knows what message to send, right? So this is a Slack tool. So its job is to leverage this tool to send a message to the user or to the business owner. Then we also add another tool. But this one, the chat ID, of course. So like I mentioned, for us to keep track of the chats, we also need to always, leverage this chat ID so that we know, who we are always referring to. And the text here, I want agents to be the one to send a message. I don't because so that it's dynamic, and then but how this message will be sent based on the prompt that I'm also going to send on this or configure on this agent, right? So to do that, like I mentioned, two things that we always need here: the prompt, the inputs, right? The input I'm using is user message of the wants, and then the username, so that it uses that information to be able to send the correct prompt. Then I'm going to add another thing, system message. System message is how I want this urgent, replier, right, to be able to answer the agent. So I will have a list of rules that I will send here so that the agent is able to do that, right? So these are, I might not be able to go through everything, but from what I'm seeing, what we're seeing here, I have defined this so that the agent is, because part of what makes these agents pretty powerful is the fact that they have the autonomous abilities, right? So because I have set this prompts, I am saying, hey, there are two tools that you have, right? So first, I'm defining, you see what I'm saying here? I'm defining what the agent is meant to do, right? And say you have two tools at your disposal: Telegram and Slack, right? For Telegram, you're applying to the customer. Make sure you're sending a calming human reply directly to the customer. Then you have a Slack, which is alerting the owner to send a clear actionable alert to the owner, right? So then the customer is stressed. So your reply must lower that stress, and I'm sending how, so because I am doing this, I don't have to statically type. Sometimes you have to think so much to type, something customer messages, right? But right now, I'm saying, hey, agent, this is your job. This is what you're meant to do. And so I can type the rules of how I want the reply to look like. I can, make it so that no matter the message that the user sends, you know what to reply. It knows what to reply. So imagine, it's a scenario where, you are frustrated and the customer is coming, an urgent message. Sometimes you have to calm down, right, to be able to reply that customer. But the AI will not frustrate you. Always answer calmly, always be polite, right? I mean, that's what it's meant to do. So you see, you're really solving that problem and removing that stress from your head. So it's going to leverage the tool to be able to send those messages. And then, yeah, so that's it. And then last but not the least, we have to include a chat model. Like I mentioned, we are going to be really, so as you can see here that anything has gives access to, several models. Open Router is one of them. So set up an Open Router. Open Router is free. I'm just giving you the ones that are free, right? Because, of course, there are some that that you might not be able to pay for. Open Router is free. You can come up here, and sign up on them. When you sign up, you can get your API key. Same thing, same way. So I can come here again and get another API key. Let me call this ZT SME inquiry agents and credit limits. I can just create it. I create this key, come back to anything. In case sometimes you don't have your own credential, you can still come here, create a new credential. All you need to do is put API key, and that's all, right? However, if you're going to leverage the free models, like you have to be careful. Like this on OpenAI GPT for me, it's not free, right? Because this is you have to pay for this. So to get the free ones, just type free, right? So you see, these are the free ones that are open to you. But of course, the free ones are also limited in the sense that not all of them, of course, use it to test, like I always advise you, right? So let me just be sure I am getting the correct one. So for the free ones, I like to use the NVIDIA Nemotron because it's powerful, and I think NVIDIA does give a lot of usage for them, right? So yeah, so depending, and then yeah. So another thing that you can also do here is, yeah, so once you have this Open Router account, and this is leveraging the free one just for you to test how this works. But of course, even though it's not free, it's actually cheap. And if you look at tokens and the cost that you eventually incur, it's not really that expensive, right? But yeah, but so don't be scared. And then, so now I have done this, I am going to run this to see, how it works. Okay, I forgot to, yeah, I think I set up the Slack and um, so I already sent an on message, right? So as you can see here, the agent is already doing its job, right? And I'm going to go to my Telegram again, just to show. So as you can see here, this is my Telegram. And I say, thank you, Kachi. I'm sorry your ball hasn't been processed yet. The owner has been, right? You see, polite, very polite, very polite. And then I'm going to go over to my Slack window.